Sierra Leone has always admired certain countries for their effort against corruption. Kenya, Ghana, even Nigeria, our anti-corruption campaign was built on the blueprint of what is happening in Nigeria and Kenya. But today, in this scorecard, we are so far ahead of them, you even start to wonder what is happening in Sierra Leone. Is this a miracle? Nigeria got 0. Sierra Leone has 83. Can you imagine that? Kenya is lagging behind. Ghana is far below. Liberia, which is closer to us, Guinea. In fact, we are not even competing with them. We are so far away from them. So you ask yourself, what is happening in Sierra Leone?
Yes, subscribe. You always dey watch we program them, but you not subscribe it to the channel. All wetin you get for do, press this red subscribe button, and then you come over here and press this bell. So the bell option, press this one with all. And don't done. And not get for cost you anything. When you do this, now sign for show say you dey support we for make we do more. Thank you for your help we for share this program. Yeah, God bless you.
We are back with Wake Up Sierra Leone 2021 recap edition. In the show this morning, we will review Wake Up Sierra Leone conversations around the government's biggest campaigns, education and corruption.
And we will also look at discussions about human rights on the show, the developments made in the year 2021 and some of the lapses too. But before that, we'll get our quote for the day, which says, to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity.
Our quote for today comes from the late Nelson Mandela, South African civil rights activist and president from 1994 to 1999. With that, we move straight into our first segment about education and corruption, two of the government's biggest campaigns. Well, you know, education, I keep saying, you know, with all the challenges, the Minister of Basic Education is actually doing his bit.
So I felt bad when he wasn't awarded as Minister of the Year when Alhaji Kanja Sise was awarded, because to be honest, in my personal view, David Senge is one of the most innovative and hardworking ministers. He doesn't just sit to say, let me do my daily job. He's always thinking about innovative ways to solve some of the problems, which is awesome. It's not just to say I come and I do things as I met them, just come to work every day, sign papers. No, be innovative, which is what he's doing. Radical transformation, positive radical transformation in the educational sector for basic and senior secondary education.
They just introduced, they're going to introduce a new curriculum.
Exactly.
That includes innovation, entrepreneurship.
Matching up to this
day.
So from that stage, the kids are prepared for tertiary.
You know what you want to do.
Exactly, and it helps. So at that point, even if you are a dropout at senior secondary, there's still some innovation in your head. There's still entrepreneurship thoughts built in your mind already. It's amazing.
So I told a friend that President Bio should have David Senge, the Minister of Basic Education, to present at Cabinet on how to transform ministries, so his colleagues could learn from him and implement things that will transform. We know some areas it takes time and you need resources, but there are immediate things you can do that can transform certain sectors.
We're going to give, I'm recommending we give Senge another year or two at Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary Education. He should be reshuffled to another ministry that needs urgent attention.
So they should be rotating him.
Exactly, because it seems he knows what he's doing.
Maybe he's recommending to the president.
So we should give him like a year or so more for basic. Then we should relocate him to another ministry that needs urgent attention. So he would bring his
and
innovation.
he supervises all the other ministries.
No, not that he should become a chief minister. Another ministry where he can radically bring transformation. So if we have like 3 or 4 of David Senge's type as ministers, trust me, things would change.
We're looking forward to the work of the Minister of Higher Education as well, Professor Alpha Wuri. We know he's been in that sector, he left, he's come back, he's very passionate about reviving the tech voc area, which is very important. So people, if you can't make it to the university, you have somewhere to go and learn something. That is also very important. So we look into how that as well will transform the education sector and system in our country.
If I was going to give an award, Minister of the Year, David Senge, would definitely have that award.
I'll join you on that. And I'm sure many people will also do that. Yeah.
All right, in our first segment this morning, we are reviewing the conversation on education. During the year, we were fortunate to host both the Minister of Basic and Senior Education, Dr. David Senge, and the Minister of Technical and Higher Education, Professor Alpha Wuri. But we start with basic education. Now, on several occasions, the minister came to our studios to talk about the basic and senior education sector. From the reopening of schools in the midst of COVID-19 to plans for public exams and innovations for parents and pupils to access results, the education sector has had quite an eventful, transformative, positive year. The Minister, David Moinina Senge, was here in our studios to talk to us on these and other issues. Let's get the highlights.
Thank you, and happy Monday. As I drove here, I put down my glass and I was looking at the faces of the kids who are happy. They're playing, they're frolicking, they're holding hands, some are buying food in front of their schools, and it's exciting to see that. I think there's very few things that are more beautiful than a happy child in the uniform going to a school to learn. Right. It's such a wonderful thing that we can do that for these kids. And there are many countries where school has not happened for over a year and they've not been able to transition. So I want to thank the citizens and every parent who believed and worked with us in government to ensure that in the midst of COVID in 2020, we transition all of our kids. This year we transition, we lost no transition period, and it's wonderful, so thank you. I think from the ministry, we do our best. You know, there are 11,100 schools, and we try to work with the Council of Principals, the National Association of Head Teachers, SLTU, and all the stakeholders to ensure that the schools are ready for the children to learn, and we don't want to miss class time, which is why we released the calendar a long time ago, and we have it on our website, and we continue to let people know. You may have seen that we're already pre-positioned in books. You know, part of the free quality school education is that we pay tuition and subsidies. Our hope is that the delays in subsidies, which used to happen because of verification of numbers and some principals and head teachers who try to game the system, and so we try to verify, will change. But for the first time this year, Becker and MPSC is out before the start of school. It never used to be the case. So we didn't know what the Becker numbers were and the Form 1 numbers. And so we needed to take a lot of time to wait for those numbers before we can get the full. There are many things that happened before that limited our ability to give subsidies and give books and all of that, which we have undercut this time. So our hope is that we will be able to deliver books to schools earlier, we'll be able to give subsidies earlier, we'll be able to get the schools functioning better.
So going back with getting the kids, back to schools when we're still taking WASC, is that prudent enough owing to the fact that, we have so many guys taking the exam? Shouldn't the kids wait until perhaps the exams are done with?
No, because we have 11,000 schools, and I think, I don't know the top of my head, but no more than 250 WASC centers. I can check the number. So it's negligible, the number of centers that are there compared to everybody else. So no, it doesn't make sense to not open schools. But even with centers, the other day I was at Model, which was a center. There was an exam they were taking. They had only 16 candidates. And at Edwards, where I also went, they sit in the hall. Edwards is in the hall. And then they use the classrooms. They use some of the classrooms. It doesn't make sense to not have all the kids back. However, on core subject days like math, English, biology, literature, where most people will show up, those schools that do not have the classroom space will communicate to their children to say, don't come to school tomorrow, don't come to this school on this day and this day and this day because they will be crowded. And I think it's a fair conversation. We met with CPSS, the Council of Principals, and we engaged them because they're the only ones who are affected by this. In primary school, they're not affected because we don't use any primary school center, so they won't have any disruption. And for the GSS and SSS, it will be some schools where they don't have enough classrooms to use as centers and learning. On those days, that will be disrupted. But again, like I say, learning is not just sitting in a classroom and having the teacher come and instruct. Let the children go do projects. Give them project days. Let them go build something. If you're not in school, does not mean you should not go to the library and do research on COVID. And I think we're trying to challenge the schools and parents to think outside the box, to say, just because you're not in classroom does not mean there's no school or learning is not happening. So on those days, we challenge and invite everybody to give their child a project to go do. Let them go learn outside the classroom, which is as equally important as learning in school. So we've thought about all of this, and it matters that our children are safe. And the reason why we do not want our children to stay at home idly, we know that many people, particularly those who are poor, who don't have the resources to send to school, and they're the ones who suffer the most. They're the ones who, and we want them to come back. We want those children to come back and experience learning. And for girls, a lot of the things that happened before was after Beke and Sabele. It's not that, well, if you're a 16, 17-year-old, you're curious about your body, and you are home, everybody has gone to school, and all you do is to be bored and be tempted to do misguided things. And there are other people who also take advantage of that. So we wanted to limit the opportunities for people's minds to wander.
And I like the word limit, because there is currently this issue with regards to the Beke, wherein the students who had like the option of going to one school or the other, they had, I think, 3 choices of schools, and some are being left out at the moment because some schools are no longer accepting them because they didn't put them as their first choice or second choice. So is the ministry involved in that, trying to mediate with the schools, or are you aware of that case?
We are, and I think it's a miscommunication. And it's, as you said, some schools, they are not refusing the schools. So let me speak about this, and this happened for MPSC as well. You had 3 choices. You can choose, say, I want to go to this school. If I don't get into this school, I go to the next school. What most parents and kids did was they chose Convent, Annie Walsh, and FSSG. Now, the thing is, if you choose Convent, Annie Walsh, or FSSG, those schools are already oversubscribed, meaning you have 2,000 kids who pass to go to Convent, and they only have 300 spaces. And so it is impossible for even those who chose Convent as first choice to all get into Convent. So the reason why Convent is not taking or considering those who put them as second choice is not because they are so proud and, you know, you did not choose us as first choice, so we are not going to take you. It's because the seats are full already with those who put them as first choice, that they can't even consider those who put them as second choice. And we as a ministry didn't know who those oversubscribed schools were, because we never had data on where people were placed before. And now that we've been able to do this process, we now have the data for all the oversubscribed schools. And oversubscribed schools are schools in which there are many more candidates who say, I want this school as first choice, who pass to go to that school than the number of available chairs.
But it could be argued that such data could have been presumed, because if you look at the track records of these schools, take Annie Walsh, for example, Convent, for example, anyone would put those schools as A-list schools.
Would you think, and so I didn't want to call them A-list schools because they're not, but would you think St. Helena will fall into that?
Probably, yes. If
Vine
you look
Memorial?
At the yes, if you look at the track records of pass rates.
So where else would you say? The thing is, we don't know, and we aren't gonna say this is an A school or this is a B school, and which is why I am very particular on using oversubscribed or undersubscribed, because Model, Technical, Annie Walsh, Vine Memorial, St. Helena, they are all oversubscribed, and we wouldn't have known that before. So you're right that now that we know, what are we going to do? And we're working with WAEC and with the ministry and with all the stakeholders to say, here's a list of all the oversubscribed schools nationwide. You can only choose an oversubscribed school as your first choice. You cannot choose an oversubscribed school as your second or third choice because you will not get in. Not because it's prejudice, but because those who chose it as first choice are way too many than the seats that they have. And I think it's one of those where we as the people have to be kind to ourselves as well. When we did the three choices, everybody was happy, like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It's never happened. Our children will have more choices, which is true, which is what happened. There are children who get placed into their second choices, by the way. It's not a lot of kids who that doesn't happen to. And then we roll out the system, and because there are hiccups, which we wouldn't have known, or which we're trying to address, and all kids will be placed. Then they're like, oh, this system is not good. And the people who are saying it's not good is those who feel entitled that, power, my child should go to convent or Annie Walsh because my child got the score. Yes, but the other child who goes to Annie Walsh or convent also deserves it. They're also Sierra Leoneans, and they're also deserving of that position. So I just think we have to be more patient with ourselves. I think we are changing the system. There's a lot of work that we are doing. We have high expectations of the ministry, and we want the ministry to always be perfect. But I feel positive that we have partners and stakeholders who we work with that will make sure that even when we make mistakes or when we do not know what could possibly happen, we can solve it, and no one really will be left behind.
Stay with us. Let's bring the SLTU Secretary General in the conversation. I mean, the minister mentioned that they are hopeful that some of the challenges that they are confronted with will be surmounted. Especially, let's talk about the ones that deal with you directly. Issue of PIN codes, motivation and all of that. Now, how prepared are you for the reopening of schools? Well, schools have reopened already.
Thank you very much. Well, as an organization, we have traveled around the country. We have made an assessment of the schools, the teachers, and we believe we would not, at this stage, bring any negative thought or talk about the calendar, which is today being the day for the reopening of schools. Because like the minister rightly stated, the kids are enthusiastic, they want to get to school. The parents too are eager to have their children into the school system. And from records, September is the period when school starts in this country for the year, the academic year. We are not too worried about the start date. We are only worried about those things, some of which the minister has just highlighted, that should come to play to make the school system work properly. We are happy, in the first place, that COVID is slightly under control, because that should be a major issue. If COVID was not properly put under control, as a responsible organization, we will not dare ask our teachers to even go to the school system. But rightly enough, a lot of things have been put by government. We are happy that at least we can manage, encourage teachers to see how we serve this nation. But frankly, when you talk about the PIN code issue of teachers, it was a serious issue. We did some investigation. Like I said, when we went around the country, we had the opportunity of holding meetings. And in those meetings, the teachers were able to highlight the problems that they have. A lot of their colleagues who have been given PIN codes but no salary. And responsibly, we wrote to TSC, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labor, to draw their attention to that plight of those teachers. At the time, we had over 800
of them
who had PIN codes
with no
by
salary.
the statements we collected around the country.
With no salaries.
No salary. So we had to come together in our office. We examined the issue and we thought we should engage the authorities. And that was how we started the engagement. The minister himself is aware about it, and we are happy that he quickly responded positively in trying to address that issue of the PIN codes. Together with the Teaching Service Commission, who, of course, we directly wrote the letter to, we had some meetings that proved very positive. At the end of the day, they accepted that they need to do some investigations. Some investigations were done. They discovered that, yes, the number may be too alarming, but it is a fact that there are teachers in the school system who have PIN codes but are not paid. And I have to state here that also we are very happy with the recent development. TSC has ordered some investigation because we supplied a list of those teachers we captured.
Right.
So that they can see, having their location, their schools, even to their contact numbers, so that they can even talk to them to see and verify what we are saying.
All right.
And they accepted doing some verification.
All right.
Now, and we have partnered with them to do the verification because we too want to see that the proper thing is done. We have discovered some
we'll get to talk
odd
more
things
about
anyway.
teachers, but let's hear from Sierra Leoneans, some of whom are parents, on what they think about schools reopening here in the country to start the new academic year. We'll be back.
Well, for me, I'm mixed feeling because school is open. I will appreciate them. The time, of course, again, I will favor, but the preparation for the school materials is a problem. Me don't try to get some things there. I get some school materials there. I get uniform. I don't buy uniform. I don't buy shoes, but I don't get booklets. So I still need to get some things there. But however, at time, because the school they open, at time the teachers and they deal with. If again government say if they sit down, they wait for let parents they prepare. When parents they go prepare, say let school open. By then time go don't go. So now that's what they consider again. Say if government say let school open, okay for accept, because if we say let sit down wait, nobody not go ever sit down prepare fully. So as school open, if school open Monday, we go still go they go along and buy what you go down left small.
Really, me in particular, I don't feel fine because some of we begin they don't pass for go Form 1. Things are difficult. You get some the big one there with the college, they don't get scholarship, they suffer. So me at the appeal to government, let them push and for we small. We are a big, you know, easy. If we write down, say me picking seat for Congress. My last speaking, I know able for going to interview it because of the money problem. It's not easy for we the parents same. And beaucoup parents same things are difficult. Not for me no more. Because my company they would serve the grumble.
Me, I get 7 picking. They all go school. I get the one and then I collect 3. I get one where they get back order 3 where they sit was. Then I get one where from 3. So I'm glad the school they can open because what you do, no say beside education, this country not going to do nothing. You know say if we pick in a land book after we tomorrow, then they can be somebody. So I'm glad the school they open.
Yesterday I get complaint to the parents and say the time is too short where they put. Some parents they try for anybody 17th of this month. But now they're not even prepared. They say just see Monday, they're not even prepared, it's proper for the school open for Monday.
I'm glad the school open because of the school open. We're able to get passengers and what like the students and so beginning of work. And we're responsible for both beginning and school and for both beginning and school. So I'm glad the
well, some of the comrades really not look. Got the preparation, the time short. And that's what they appeal for. Even though it not long for some time. But if the government wants to set for school for open, we not objects over that in there. They happen.
All right, welcome back. You just heard the voices of parents and some people on the reopening of schools. Some are happy, some have mixed feelings, some are not so happy. But I guess that's expected with every given situation.
And the question I would want to throw from the views of Sierra Leoneans, I mean, has to do with the fact that things are difficult, and that speaks to the free quality education, the packages. A parent there was saying, I mean, her daughter should be enrolled at St. Joseph's Convent, but she has no money to go for the interview. And so that speaks to really, are schools still demanding for money in terms of, so please speak to that, Mr. Minister.
Education is a really expensive thing.
Right.
But we thank God that those parents don't have to pay school fees anymore. If parents had to pay school fees before, all that interview will be, not get school money no dey for pay school fee. We know that in this country, there are many people who were kicked out of school because they cannot pay school fees.
Right.
It's amongst the largest burden on parents that existed. And with President Bio's free quality school education, even though things are difficult, we thank God that one of the difficulties is not paying school fees. It's also not buying core textbooks, which have been pre-positioned in all the districts as I speak. It's also, thank God, that they don't have to buy exercise books. They may come late, but exercise books finish, you still have to buy them. Even if it's 1 week late or 1 month late, you will use them later on when you get them. It is also that in many schools, hundreds of schools, over 350,000 kids, don't have to pay for lunch in rural areas and in poor areas. It is also difficult, but transportation is, how much is on the school bus? 1,000, compared to what other people have to pay. We have to put things in perspective. Things are difficult, and they could have been even worse, horrendously worse for those who are poor if it wasn't for free quality school education that President Bio brought. Now, and I've heard this a lot about people having to, at interviews, pay. You don't need to pay.
What they refer to as admission fee.
No, there's no admission fee. There's, I mean, SLTU is here. You things like badges, your school colors. You have to buy school colors to go and stick them on your uniform. It's not a question of an admission fee. So there are costs associated with going to school, but they are not tuition, they are not core exercise, core textbooks, they are not teaching and learning materials, they are not sporting equipment, and we have to be honest and name things as they are. But, we have to buy uniforms.
Just to speak on this interview issue, perhaps Maurice Conte can give a better response to that. There are many schools whom, yes, they do not have admission fees, but for you to take the, say if you have an entrance exam or an interview, you have to pay some fee, and then you are then eligible to go and do the interview or take the entrance exam. So is that legal or illegal?
Sorry, can I qualify that to say government or government assisted versus private and non-government assisted, because it's different. What happens? So if you can speak to the government.
It is good you brought this issue up. You see, government is doing its best in terms of implementing the free education thing. But I want to tell my minister, there are associated costs, even with the government-assisted schools, not just the private. Of course, the situation may be worse off when you go to private schools. But even in government-assisted schools, there are some associated costs which maybe you may not know. And we, in fact, that is one area I need to tell you, Mr. Minister, we are ready to partner with you to do some monitoring and investigations, because we are all Sierra Leoneans. If government is making some effort, we need also to see that angle where we encourage those in the government-assisted schools to also do the right thing. Because like some parents are now saying, they know they are not paying fees. But some of the grumbles are coming because of the associated costs.
Can you please be specific? I mean, the associated costs you're talking about, what are they?
In some schools, for example, they will tell you, you have to pay this for us conducting our exams. They will have to tell you, we have social activity which we have to do as a school. They would have to tell you, if you want to come to this school, you have to help in us getting an additional bench. In fact, that is one key area I wanted to highlight with the minister. We have problems with school structures. Even here in the capital city, you must have observed there are teachers overcrowded. You go into some schools where we would love to see, say, like 40 children in a classroom. But you have some schools with over 60, 70, 80 pupils in one class. That we have seen. And that is bringing more burden. That is why some of the schools go down low to even ask parents because like you are saying rightly, some parents, they would want this choice A school. And because they want it, they would go down to pay extra. Maybe if they ask them to buy one chair so that they can accommodate the child, they go down and do it.
And these things do happen in schools?
It does.
Does it happen in your school?
My school?
Yes.
The SLTU school?
Your school. But
you're a teacher.
But I mean, you're a teacher, right? You've taught before as well.
Yes.
Does it happen in the school?
It does.
Your school.
I don't only want to name names because really
But we should name names. This is when people usually complain to me, I say, tell me who, and nobody tells me.
There are schools we get reports about what actions do happen, about requests that come, which are not legal, really. But again, the parents are faulty because they also condone, because they want their children to be admitted in certain class A schools. So they condescend.
Like CPSS and NACOT and parents. I think there's so many issues here. By the way, the fact that schools cutoff is higher is evidence of improvements in quality. Many more of our children are passing and doing well than before, so the numbers will keep going up. Private schools can open at different times. I think there's a general sense of syllabus and curriculum and contact hours. If those schools believe that they can teach the content that they are going to teach for the exams that we have to take, that's why parents are there. I invite that parent to engage the teacher and be part of PTA meetings. If you're a parent, go to a PTA meeting this week or whenever there's a meeting and participate in any school. I mean, there's so many issues. Number one, I would like to urge and encourage SLTU to work with its partners, its members to do the COVID vaccination. I think it's important. There are vaccines, there are single jab vaccines. Let all teachers be vaccinated. We'd already had an encouragement. This is something that I would like for you to pick up with your membership. Teachers with no PIN codes, with PIN codes who are not on pay, I want us to distinguish and know that that teachers who have begun to get salaries have all been paid and on time. These are teachers who have not received salaries yet. And the reasons for that has to do with mismatches, and that's why I was happy that the ex-Sec-Gen said verification. There's an ongoing verification. We did one with NACIT as well, and then we did one with NCRA, and now SLTU and CSC are doing another one. With regards to structures, yes, government is building more and more and more classrooms. They just built with our partners a STEM school for girls with boarding in Kenema. President is opening 100 schools that we renovated on Friday. The VP is opening 60 classrooms for ECD that we have built, and more are coming up. We are starting the development of 80 additional classrooms this year. There's more classrooms being built. But it's not going to be possible to have one teacher to 40. Nowhere. I mean, sure, it can happen in some private schools. We have 35,000 teachers on payroll, 80,000 teachers overall, and 2.6 million children. It is not possible to hire. And those 35,000 teachers make up 40% of the entire government payroll, 43%. So it is not just for Sierra Leone, as a world, and this is something I propagate. As a world, we need to reimagine how teaching can happen and what teaching is and what learning in the classroom should be. And I think it's something that Sierra Leone can innovate and lead on. And I invite SLTU and all of us to really think outside the box and think about how our children can learn with the people that we have and within the structures that we have to meet the learning demands.
But these were some of the challenges foreseen prior to the president implementing the free education scheme. Parents were worried. I mean, the general citizenry of Sierra Leone was worried about how we're going to match the number of children who are going to be in school with the free education to the number of teachers we currently have. So, you know, one would expect that more would be done to bring more teachers into the system and, you know,
but I'll tell you how we'll do it. It's not bringing more teachers in the classroom. Just like I said, we're adding more. We'll use technology. We'll use radio. We'll use peer learning. We'll use teaching at the right level methods. We'll use materials the kids can take home. And the reason why the kids who are doing better now in hard to reach areas and we're reducing zero pass rate schools is we're bringing materials, physical materials, and giving it to those kids. It will take time. I don't think there's a single answer. I mean, there are many kids. All these countries did remote learning, distance learning. If you're doing remote learning, you can have 1 to 10,000. It doesn't matter. You can have 1 to 1,000. So we just have to think outside the box. And that's something that we have been doing. And we're trying to ensure that all schools have connectivity. In terms of subsidy, we're developing a subsidy use guideline. The Sec-Gen mentioned that you give subsidies and people don't have guidelines. We're developing one currently. It's drafted. Ministry of Finance has looked at it. We're going to engage Audit Sierra Leone and Parliament and our members, our stakeholders who all reviewed it. It's important that we have those subsidy use guidelines. I mean, I think to your point, I remain hopeful. I think there's no outcome, there's no learning outcome, there's no variable today that you take in which Sierra Leone is doing worse than 1 year or 2 or 3 years ago. None. Gender parity, we took it from 0.8, now we're at 0.94. The only class in which there are more boys than girls is SS1, and we know why before. This year, hopefully that begins to change. Student enrollment, high. Student attendance and teacher attendance monitoring, we're doing that now, high. Teachers on payroll, who are more teachers on payroll, no teacher has not been paid, that we've never missed a teacher's salary. Those who we're cleaning up now. Transition rates on the increase, Becker pass rates high, NPSC pass rates higher than when we took, and exam malpractice down. There's literally no learning variable today in this country that you take and say we're doing worse than we were before FQSC. And that is just wonderful to see that even with all the challenges that exist, so as we solve it. Finally, I want to talk, I think your question that you raised about structures in schools. Government-owned schools and government-assisted owned schools are owned and managed by the people. I appoint as minister, board chair, and SMC chair. These are leaders in the community. We appoint boards, and the proprietors of schools, the mission, appoint people. Now, I'm not going to sit in New England and expect that I'll know what's happening in 11,000 schools. Our hope and understanding is that these principals who we're hiring, who are leaders, the CTA and PTA chair, who the parents are choosing, the SMC chair and the Board of Governors chair, who we are choosing, that they can be leaders and run the school. The Act says the BOG manages the schools. So one of the things that we want to do is to hold the BOG chairs, the SMC chairs, and we're training them, by the way, accountable, and to make sure that it's their responsibility. And the PTA is on the board. So if a parent is complaining, show up to the PTA, change the PTA leader, and you go be the PTA person, and then you change it in your school.
All right.
I will take you on that point and throw the questions over now to Maurice Conte. You've heard some of the messages. Is there any you would like to respond to?
Yeah, a few comments I would like to make, but I would also want to take some of the issues raised by our minister.
Quickly, in 2 minutes.
This issue of the pupil-teacher ratio, we don't need to downplay it. We are talking about quality education. We are putting in place certain issues to bring about quality assurance, fine. All I am saying, these are facts, and I want our minister to maybe do some more investigation. I know you have done some work, but do some more investigation to look at the situation. You see, there are schools in this country where you go there, you meet only one teacher doing the rest of the work. I come from the north, Tonkolili district to be specific. I know of a school, my village. I went there one day to meet just 2 teachers. It is only one that is qualified. The other one you can call a helper or volunteer. But the number of pupils in that school, to my thinking, it brings some added burden to the teacher. And this is all the reason why teachers are advocating for more attention. And I will not leave this forum without talking about that, because very soon we'll come to you to begin to ask for an improvement in their salaries and allowances.
All right.
Because the burden is increasing every now and then because of some of these things that are happening. When they are overloaded, you go to the classroom where you should have reduced numbers so that you can adequately handle the pupils and do correct work. You meet over 70 or more.
Unfortunately, we have to hold you down and say thank you to you for this morning.
Yeah, it's a bad situation.
9 a.m. Thank you very much.
We hope these things can happen. Lastly,
in few seconds,
please.
Yeah, the COVID thing he mentioned, we have started discussions as an executive to see what input we can make to ensure that teachers also
Thank
get
you.
vaccinated.
Thank you very much for being a part of the program this morning. It's been an interesting conversation.
Well, that was the Minister of Basic and Senior Secondary Education, David Senge. We also spoke to his counterparts in the education sector, Professor Alpha Wuri, the Minister of Technical and Higher Education. He was hosted by Samuel and Antonia to talk about his experience in the education sector, his assessment of Sierra Leone's higher education system, and his plans as minister. Let's take a look.
Good morning and welcome to the show, Doc.
Good morning.
Thank you and good morning.
The last time we had a conversation, it was when you were at the Ministry of Health and Sanitation. Well, we're going to skip. Now, let's go back to, first off, when you were, Minister of Education, Science and Technology under the late President Kaba's regime. Teko, what was the state of education then?
In 1996, Sierra Leone was at war. So it was taking the mantle to be able to handle educational provisions in a state of insecurity. We had a 9-month period that we left the shores of Sierra Leone. And we returned in sometime in I think 1997. Well, one had to solicit support, mainly to be able to bring the system to basic operational level. We handled a project called the Suburban Project, which was a blend between the World Bank and the African Development Bank. And in that project, we were able to do something like 400 or 500 schools, primary and junior secondary schools. There were like 43 chiefdoms without junior schools, and the junior school was put into all of those. We were able to train 4,000 or 5,000 teachers and support the system with basic school materials. The whole essence was to lift education to a basic position that you could start to operate again after the war. We had people who suffered badly being behind rebel lines, and we had to give rapid education to those people, something called complementary rapid education program, in which we compressed 6 years of primary school into 3 years. Some of them may have completed university education as I sit here now. So that was the main input in the early years, in the years of Ahmad Tijan Kaba. We also supported girls, I must say, but it was skewed, not skewed, it was deliberately skewed because there was a weakness in girls' education in the northern province and in the eastern region as well. So girls after junior secondary school were supported to stay in school in many ways. So now we have created the balance, I think, as a country, and we now have slightly more girls in the school system than boys even. So the intention of Sababu was really attained.
There hasn't been much infrastructural development. If you take it back to the population the University of Sierra Leone used to cater to. So when responding to these questions, maybe you can add what the plans are for that as well. And
a lawyer friend of mine who, offers free legal advice, if I don't ask this question, would not offer that to me again. He's saying, please ask the minister, what's happening with postgraduate scholarships in the field of law? We do not get to hear about same since you came, Jusu Kaloni said.
All right.
Well, you know, what I love is that in the field of education, we all have a view. And people are talking about dreams. Well, indeed, that is how life grows. You have to have a dream, you have to have a plan, you have to walk towards those plans. And really, I'll start off with the person that spoke about teaching practice. Indeed, previously you will not be a teacher without 3-month teaching practice. And most of our heads of schools have to have a DPED, a diploma in education, for which they do a whole year after your first degree. These are, you remember the universities did what they call functional and management reviews. Frabi College described theirs as re-engineering of the institutions. Well, that has come up. May I say Jala would work towards re-establishing its education sector again to make sure we train people in the core subjects. We talk about giving scholarships in STEAM, but if you do not get teachers in those options, then in fact it's a catch-22 situation. There are some projects which government had indicated. It's up for us to find out what is happening with those projects. I've just mentioned here that indeed we would hope to give a grant in aid for people that are vying to become teachers. And that is one of the manifesto commitments, which is likely will start in this new academic year. And we spoke about teaching college or in every district. We are not there yet. We are definitely not there yet. However, what we've started to do is to train teachers in every district by distance education. So we've not created a college, but we've created the provision of the service. You remember Jala just opened a college, not Jala, IPAM opened one at Pujo. recently. They will not be sitting there on a daily basis, but they'll be able to teach. You know. So the manifesto was written when we did not know about the improvement in ICT facilities, and therefore we wanted every college to have a tertiary education institution. I think we should do so, though. I think now we have opened a government technical institute in the districts. We've done 9 districts, 10. We've got money, I'll be answering your question along the way, from Q8 now, 24 million to do a government technical institute in the other 6 districts. Now, if you, and that is the more expensive side of a community college. The other arm would be the teacher training arm, and let's say the medical arm, the nurse training arm. And that is far cheaper than the technical side. So we feel confident that we would be able to establish community colleges in every district. When a child has 2 WASC, you don't have to go and spy sheets to come to a University of Sierra Leone. No, you would have a community college to go to where you upgrade yourself and then use that with time to enter into other colleges.
I think
there are several projects we are handling. The Sierra Leone Education Project, a $68 million project, focuses on the 2 colleges that we've upgraded to become technical universities. About $20 million would be spent on Milton Magai, its 3 campuses, for physical facilities as well as equipment. The same would be done for Eastern Polytechnic, but mainly in the Bunumbu campus. So the whole structure for teacher education, agricultural training would be fully supported. We are reasonably comfortable there. In fact, remember, you know, this government is one, they say talk and do, but it's one that you make sure you have the wherewithal before you say anything. We've just turned this out for Kono. We've turned this out for Kono using government resource, a $2.1 million. That's what we will start to do, the administrative building, the hall, the lecture hall, as a start. But in June of 2021, the main project itself, which is resource we got from Exim Bank through ECOWAS, a 33 million or so, will come in and then you will do the hostel facilities, the labs, whatever. You should commend the government to say, I'm not going to wait for the project. I'm going to start to do things myself, start to get students in. In January, we will start to bring in students to do foundation course. By that time, you know, Kono, not many people pass science. Maybe we would encourage the minister, we work with the Minister of Basic Education, who would also make an investment in doing science laboratories. So we would get people graduating in science. It would be sad to have a university located in Kono, and you do not have people from Kono accessing the university for all others. I would end by saying that urban planning and environmental management are key issues that are key issues that definitely, I'm sure the university people are hearing us as we converse. It is not all of it that is what but the minister. That is why we are getting independent chancellors. So each institution would be autonomous, not independent, but autonomous, such that they can be able to chart their own developmental.
You know, as we round up now, the final question would be, you know, broadly speaking, what would be your key targets? You've mentioned different projects which are unfolding by next year. What would you say are your key targets for the systemic improvement of the tertiary education system or sector?
The key target would be respectability to technical education. A target would be every graduate from WASC finding a tertiary education that suits their capacity. By that I mean those with 2, 3, 4 WASC doing different layers of programs. Hence, we have done what is called the National Qualification Framework by both the NCTV and SPHERE, a project British supported project called SPHERE. So we would be able to transfer grades. By that I mean if I am at Jala, I've done a few programs, I should be able to use those grades and come to College of Medicine or to Frabe College as well. Now you cannot be able to move grades because you have not standardized the output from one student to the other. We need to increase the base. 30,000 is too small a number. We need to go 3 times that. of which we graduate about 20,000 per year, but have in the system about 100,000.
Right, well, thank you very much for making the time to come on Wake Up Salone. It's been an interesting conversation.
Right.
Anyway, hope you're enjoying the recap so far.
Welcome back to Wake Up Salone on your home of credible, factual and balanced news, AYV. Watch us live on Facebook, on the Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page, or on channel 399 on DSTV. This is the 2021 recap edition as we count down just over a week to the new year. And now we talk about corruption. One of the second biggest
I'm
issue.
telling you, the elephant in the room.
We're looking forward to a better education, both at primary and senior secondary and at the tertiary and university level.
Yeah. Now, arguably, the most topical issue in the country these days is corruption. The commission of the Anti-Corruption Commission was here in our studios to talk about the fight against graft and the challenges of the commission in doing so. Francis Ben Kaifala said for the year 2021, he is happy with the gains made against corruption in the country. Well, let's get the highlight of this interview that was held in the studio with Francis.
Good morning to you.
A very good morning to you.
Right, you know, this is an accolade for the ACC, moving up from 81 to 83%. Now, the MCC scorecard usually looks at the, policy frameworks and institutional reforms that have been made in certain institutions, and we've seen improvement in the score for the ACC. What's your take on this? What would you point to as some of the things that have led to this score?
Firstly, it's a score for Sierra Leone, not the ACC. The ACC is just one of the actors in the accountability space. And of course, you have other actors like the Audit Service Sierra Leone, the Ministry of Finance and the Financial Secretary, and the National Procurement Authority, and various other actors, including the government itself. So, and the people of Sierra Leone have to support. So this is really the scorecard, and even the control of corruption score is a congratulations to Sierra Leone. We are just also happy that we played a very good role in that process as we lead the fight and engineer it, and also take steps that can work. So this means a lot for Sierra Leone. First of all, let's look at it from this point of view. The scorecard is not incremental. It's not like every year they add, okay? Every year you are assessed from zero, comparative to other countries in your income category. Sierra Leone failed this scorecard in 2017. Failed, 49%, failed. We were ineligible for compact and things like that, who were downgraded to threshold, things like that. Now, getting on from 2017, in 2018, a new president comes, appoints a young commissioner to lead the fight against corruption, appoints a deputy commissioner at the ACC to fight corruption. A powerful team is set, the engineering is put into framework, and of course the architecture is developed for a blueprint of a strong campaign against corruption. In those 4 years that have gone, immediately we jumped from 49% to 71%. That is no mean feat if you look at the progression of other countries. From 71%, from that is 2018, 2019, 79%. 2020, 81%. And now we have increased to 83%, which means every year they have assessed in this period. There is not just remarkable progress, there is a jump in the progress that is being made. And this is something, and these are independent people, people who deal with data, not emotions, not feelings, not what other people say. That data comes from the World Bank and Brookings, a respected data collecting system as to what is happening with the fight against corruption in respective countries. And it is significant, more significant when you look at it comparative to other countries. Okay? Sierra Leone has always admired certain countries for their effort against corruption. Kenya, Ghana, even Nigeria. Our anti-corruption campaign was built on a blueprint of what is happening in Nigeria and Kenya. But today, in this scorecard, we are so far ahead of them, you even start to wonder what is happening in Sierra Leone. Is this a miracle? Nigeria got 0.
Sierra Leone has 83. Can you imagine that? Kenya is lagging behind. Ghana is far below. Liberia, which is closer to us, Guinea. In fact, we are not even competing with them. We are so far away from them. So you ask yourself, what is happening in Sierra Leone? It can only happen because of the conscientious effort of every actor within the accountability space, and the result is glaring and clear, and it is not just one-off. This is 4 years back to back. It has never happened in our history, and we have a lot to congratulate ourselves for it.
So let's get to put specifics in. Now, the Sierra Leone Anti-Corruption Commission is seen as a model in other African countries,
yes.
And you are being called to go and share experience, how you're doing it. So what are specifically some of the efforts or the reforms that have been made in the fight against corruption, leading to these recognitions?
Firstly, we have to recognize the political atmosphere we have, the socio-political atmospheres we have in Sierra Leone. I have always said that a strong anti-corruption campaign starts from the presidential will before it even gets to political will, because the president has to want the fight against corruption and be the leader of it, be the space for it. That is why every year the president of Sierra Leone gives a speech specifically on World Anti-Corruption Day, December 9. Even this year, I just received a letter from State House saying that the president is willing to give that statement again this year. That is leadership of the fight against corruption from the highest level, but not just in words, indeed. How he allows the institutions and actors do their job fairly, professionally, without interference. That is what we have enjoyed at the ACC. And there are other things that we have done. Now, we realize that the fight against corruption, most countries focus on enforcement. They do a lot of enforcement, like Nigeria, they do a lot of enforcement. Other countries focus more on prevention. They do a lot of prevention, no enforcement. We, Sierra Leone, engineered a fight against corruption built on 4 pillars. Enforcement, which is investigation and prosecution, and also non-conviction-based asset recovery, 1. We also built a strong pillar on prevention. Prevention is the bedrock of the fight against corruption. We have done 94 integrity management committees in MDAs in Sierra Leone. When I became commissioner, we could not even have up to 25. That is an ACC in every institution. People kneel themselves to be corruption conscious. At NRA, they even have a department that they call the anti-corruption department, anti-corruption unit. That is something that has happened. But beyond prevention, there is also what we call public education. As you know, the ACC has some of the most powerful public engagement and public education machinery in the country.
There's a major investigation ongoing by the ACC, the one into the renovation of the Chancery building for Sierra Leone in the USA. And we've seen the events that unfolded a couple of days ago with the interview of once presidential candidate for the APC, Dr. Samura Kamara, and his supporters are saying the ACC is being selective in the way it's handling the matter. Now, how would you respond to that in relation to, what the MCC is saying?
My first response is that Samura Kamara is a politician, and politicians will always be politicians. So let's give him that, okay? But there's a difference between fact and fiction. Dr. Samura Kamara was Financial Secretary in Sierra Leone before he became flag bearer. He was Minister of Finance for several years before he became flag bearer. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs for several years before he became flag bearer. The renovation in New York took place at a time, particularly the formative period. When the first tranche of money came in 2013, Samura Kamara was at Ministry of Finance. He knows everything that happened. I have sat with him in my office, like you and I are sitting down, and had a conversation around it. He remembers everything as if it happened yesterday. When the contract was negotiated, procurement and everything happened in 2016, Dr. Samura Kamara was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He took the memorandum to cabinet and sought cabinet approval. His signature is on it. He has sat in my office and not denied that, apart from what he has spoken to investigators. He remembers it like it happened yesterday. If we are investigating something that started as way back as 2013, coming to 2021, we started this investigation. When the investigation started, when the issue came to my table, we invited the head of Chancery in New York, Mr. Nalo. We arrested and detained him together with the financial attaché. We invited every other actor. We spoke to the current Minister of Development, Dr. Kaikai, at the ACC. We spoke to Ali Kaba. For 3 consecutive days, he had to cancel his trip 2 times to return to his post because he was being interviewed at the ACC 3 days in a row for several hours. We have spoken to Nabila Tunis, who was then Foreign Affairs Minister, but currently the Minister of Western Area. We have spoken to Director Generals. Even Mina in Turkey, we have spoken to him. The same way we have spoken to Madam Basir, who was then the Director General. Why I'm explaining this to you is for you to understand that we did not just pick on Samura Kamara to come and sit down at the ACC to present a statement. And he and I know that he knows a lot more on this issue than any other government actor. Are we saying that he stole all the money? No. But we are saying you know so much about this that we have to speak to you. What is disappointing about his behavior is that when he was called upon 1 time, 2 times, he went to the ACC for 2 consecutive times. He did not come with a crowd. He did not come with people. He went there, made statement, we all laughed and joked, and he went home. The day we now confronted him with the memorandum with his signature and other things that he did in this spectrum of investigation, the next time we invited this man, in fact, the day he left ACC, that was the time he called press conference, started rallying political people, giving all kinds of explanation about something that he had gone to the ACC for twice. Nobody detained him. Nobody put him on bail. Nobody even harassed him. In fact, when he came, I saw him standing down on the CCTV in my office. I called down and said, "That is Samura Kamara there?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Yes." And I said, "Hey, you are coming to the ACC and you do not even make me know that you are here." Then he said, "Hey, well, when you come, you do not go to the chief. Other people will inform the chief that you are here." And we laughed and joked about it. How he turned this whole thing into a political fiasco can only be because he's a politician.
I'm curious,
but
just forgive me.
He and I know that nobody harassed him. We did not even put this man on bail. We only put him on bail this last time he came. And he gave clear explanations. And he is the one who was involved more than any other person. When the first transfer took place, it was when he was Foreign Affairs, he was Finance Minister. When the procurement took place, it was when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs. When the contract was signed in New York, he was Foreign Affairs Minister in 2016. So all I am saying is to rally people to come with you can be because you are a politician, which I am not interested in, but the facts do not support the claims that have been made on social media and other media. Dr. Samura Kamara was not at the ACC because he's flag bearer of the APC. He was not at the ACC because anybody wants to wish on him. He was there because he was a major actor in the process that led to the loss of $4.5 million to renovate the building in New York, 94% of which has been paid to the contractor, and the building is leaking. The structure has not been developed. The 4th and 5th floor, which they are the fixed, have not been fixed. Only 47% of the job has been done.
And just out of curiosity, you mentioned that you're not saying Samura Kamara stole all the money. So are you saying he stole some of it?
All I am saying is he had a role to play in the process that led to the loss in Sierra Leone.
Right.
Whether that role he played means criminal liability, we cannot determine it without speaking to him. We cannot determine it without hearing his perspective. We cannot determine it without what he says being included in all the corpus of conversation on the issue we have, and we then refer it to our legal department. At the end of the investigation, the legal department will now look at the role of everybody. I have told you everybody we have spoken to. And this goes, we even sent a team to New York. A team of investigators, 3 investigators left the ACC, went to New York, spoke to the contractor, spoke to lawyers, spoke to our people in the Chancellery office in New York, went to Washington, spoke to some people, and came back and presented the report. They went with an engineer from the Ministry of Works.
Could you
so
say
it tells you how professional and organized our work is, and we know what we are looking for.
Right. Could you say then that, you know, the stance of certain people saying that the ACC has been selective is justified, given that there are certain information which have been withheld and not been made public? For instance, in your previous press conference, you mentioned someone has already started paying under this investigation, and you've also not mentioned the name of the company which was contracted regarding this issue.
No, we did not withhold any information. We said a private company had some of the money in their account. They transferred some and held up to $138,000.
The name of the company?
The name of the company, the guy who is, I mean, I don't, to be honest, I don't remember the name of the company, but it's not because we have withheld it. It's because probably when I'm speaking now, I do not remember the name of the company. But if you speak to me after this meeting, when I can look at the records, I will tell you. But because that is such an insignificant part of the investigation, because we have actually recovered most of that money now. Because once we started the investigation, we realized this anomaly that not all the money has been transferred. We went to them and said, you have 5 days to produce the money. Within 10 days, we had $100,000 at the ACC from them. So that progress is being made. Investigation is engineered with progress in mind.
Is he the only individual who has made the payments?
Yes.
Or is there someone else?
No, he was the only outstanding money. The rest of the money went into the government apparatus. 2 million loans came in 2013. 2016, it was handled. Dr. Samura Kamara and others have been helping us to explain what happened to that $2 million. In 2018, another $2 million came. Dr. Ali Kaba and other people, including Nalo in New York, are helping us to explain about that $2 million that came after 2018. So as you can see, we are not being unfair to anybody.
Sense? As in, they made the payments? You need to clarify that a little bit. I'm not sure I understood that.
I am saying $2 million came for the work, okay? Most of it has gone to New York. Most of it has been paid to the contractor. It's just that the process leading to those payments are so shabby. For example, there was a requirement that before you make a payment, we are building the ACC building. In fact, this morning, we are just about to pay 2 billion euros. But it is, firstly, the engineers have to go and certify. They give a certificate to say this work has been done and the worth of the work is 2 billion euros you can produce to pay. Me, if I don't have that letter in my file, I will never sign. Okay? Yesterday, the financial secretary called me. He did not talk to me. He just went there to go and look at our building to see the progress because of this last 2 billion. And the man sent me to say the work that you are doing with that ACC building is so excellent. We are very happy with the progress. That is why we are making another payment of 2 billion euros to you for you to pay.
So there are processes to follow.
There are processes to follow. These processes were outlined in the contract document. Even though the procurement process was so flawed, it is not even something worth looking at. But there was a contract document we said they should follow that same process that we are now following at the ACC. My dear sister, how did they pay $4.7 million to an American citizen without a single certificate being issued by an engineer? Is perplexing, even to us who have seen worse.
If we go back to when this matter started, when the ACC started giving information about this particular investigation, the first disbursement that was made, the ACC mentioned some percentage that went to New York and others went into private pockets. The second disbursement again in 2018, that was almost the same submission made by the ACC. Some went to the contractor, some went to private pockets, and that is what you're investigating. So let's take for 2018, for example. Many are saying, why are we just putting more effort on what happened 2013 to 2016 or
but
2017?
that is exactly the problem.
Right.
Because those are untrue statements. The only reason why people think that we are laying more emphasis on 2013 to 2018 is because one man decided to turn this into a political fiasco. And he has the crowd behind him to do so. Because these other people we invited, we spoke to, including ministers of government, 3 other ministers of government in the current government went to ACC and made statement. You think if they too wanted to make it into a political fiasco, they could not have? They could have. They have support base, but they did not. What about all these people we have investigated in New York? What about the ones we detained? In their current position, we detained them at the ACC for weeks. They could have. There is no particular emphasis on any period. There is simply an investigation that spans from 2013 to 2021.
Let's go back to these investigations just quickly, especially those who are holding offices currently. You're investigating them, and I stand to be corrected, but the ACC Act dictates that once, they are being investigated, they should step down. But
no, the ACC Act does not say that.
Right. The
ACC Act says when we indict somebody, the person should step aside. And that is another misinformation that we have to correct.
Right.
And every time I come in this studio, almost always that is suggested. To start investigating somebody does not mean the person should step aside. And certainly, there is no law in Sierra Leone which says that. The law says when we have now done all our work, we determine that this person has to answer a case in court, and we file an indictment. Immediately we send a letter to whosoever has responsibility to relieve him of his responsibility, to say pursuant to section this of the Anti-Corruption Act, that person has to step aside. And we do it invariably at every given time.
Right.
So that is the truth. And that is what is happening. So to investigate somebody in public office does not mean the person should step aside, because the law takes into consideration the fact that it may just be the person is assisting with investigation.
So let's look at how is politics affecting the fight. If you're now saying, for example, Dr. Samuel Kamara is using, party supporters as a shield to escape accountability, how is that affecting the fight?
That is what, the capital that has been gained by the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone. You and I discussed this earlier, and I told you that when I became commissioner, I was more worried about the ruling party trying to hijack the fight against corruption or attack it.
Right.
We have a unique situation in Sierra Leone where opposition actors have seen the kind of capital that we have gained in the fight against corruption, where while we are shielding ourselves away from the government's interference, and for most part the government is not doing so, we have to also fight them to stay away so we can keep our balance and be in the middle. Imagine the muscles that I have to grow to do that. Because in other countries, they don't have to worry about these people. They only have to worry about the sitting government. But we have a situation of sustained attack on the fight against corruption coming from actors in other political affairs apart from government. But we understand this, and I have been having conversation with the rest of Africa about this, and we are doing everything we can to keep our balance, to avoid either side pulling us in their direction, for us to do our work as fairly, as best as possible, in the interest of the people of Sierra Leone.
All right, we'll quickly take a short break, but before we do so, there are certain challenges to the fight which you have mentioned now, but recently we've seen the suspension of the Auditor General, and it has brought questions as to where the country is going with the fight against corruption. And the Auditor General's report is something instrumental that the ACC uses, and that even this current government used to set up the government transition team, and they took off information from that report. So, would this then have any effect on our MCC score or the fight against corruption moving forward? What would you comment? What would your comment
Unfortunately,
be?
I don't have all the facts on the issue. I am a lawyer. So the first thing I did when this thing came out is to check the Constitution. And clearly, there is a rule which permits what has happened. Even I, as commissioner, if the president believes that I have committed misconduct, he has a right to suspend me and to set up a tribunal to investigate into my actions. If the tribunal finds me wanting, the tribunal will recommend to the president to relieve me of my position. And the same thing, if the tribunal does not find me wanting, I can continue in my position. That is what the rule of law is. And what I see has happened is an invocation of the rule of law. Whether or not she is now guilty of anything, first of all, I don't even have any clue as to what she has done. But that does not mean the people who acted don't already have that information. All of us are going to find out as things unfold, but at this stage, I don't have the information to comment on that. But I also do not think that if the proper things are done within the framework of the rule of law, it will affect the fight against corruption. Because at the end of the day, it is the very desire to protect the fight against corruption that will invoke such things, to make sure even us who are doing our job who do not fall prey to the problems that we are trying to solve.
All right. With that, we take some messages from our Facebook page.
All right. Good morning, Samuel. Please ask the ACC Commissioner. There are cases he started investigating since July 2018 and concluded investigations the same month, but these matters were never taken to court, even after he made outrageous claims in press conferences. Why are some of these matters not being closed if they cannot be taken to court? They are putting careers on hold. All right, that's from Raymond. Swissman is saying, Commissioner, why did you release Samuel Kamara? Why didn't you give him a scorecard at CID headquarters? Interesting. Eddie Grant is saying, when the young commissioner is speaking, there is no need to increase the volume. He is always loud and clear. Thomas Rojas is saying, the king is never honored in his hometown. FBK is widely regarded and respected worldwide. Okay, I'll be skipping the complimentary messages. Let's go to the issues. The ACC watered down the Auditor General's COVID findings. Now the AG is sent home. How much has the AG's report helped in the fight against corruption? Is the talk less truth? FBK, please comment. Paul Kano is saying, corruption is fighting back. Indefinitely suspending the Auditor General before releasing the most damning audited report is corruption in itself. Let's take 2 or 3 more messages at most. Warner Georgetown is saying, imagine if you had followed up on the findings on the Africanist press, which found the current government in, it's not completed, I'm afraid. Are we talking about 2016 or the 2019 $4.9 million which this government wired to the U.S. Embassy? Where is this country headed? I do not understand that myself. The last message I will take is from Eddie Grant. You've spoken to all the mentioned names as stated, but why the public wasn't aware? Why we didn't see any riots outside your ACC building? We have hundreds of messages, unfortunately, close to 1,000 active
so as we try to round up the conversation now, where is the fight against corruption going, given the challenges you've mentioned and the circumstances or unique circumstances, as you put it, we have in Sierra Leone?
As far as I know, the fight against corruption has never been better in Sierra Leone. The awareness, the public education and engagement, the massive prevention drive, the action on the Auditor General's report, the National Anti-Corruption Strategy and its mandate, the way they are going about it, and of course, enforcement. We have had some of the most amazing statistics on earth when it comes to the fight against corruption. Here we are at the ACC. 3 or 4 years now, we have only lost 3 cases, and we have won several dozens. Since 2020 to date, we have not lost a single case. Since the last time, the case against Aisha Johansson and the case against Badara at Naxa, the rest we have won. Our investigations are fierce. The Scorpion Squad is sniffing everywhere. But the prevention measures, our prevention officers are going, dismantling structures for corruption and correcting them in what is called a typical Scotch arts approach to fighting corruption. We are doing guerrilla warfare with corruption and we are winning. So if you ask me where we are with the fight against corruption, I am not just here praising because I am leading the fight against corruption. Every index on earth confirms upwards progress in the fight against corruption. And this progress that we are making are not just marginal progress. We are talking about exponential progress. If you look at Afrobarometer, it says corruption prevalence has reduced from 70% in 2017 to 40% in 2021. That is a gargantuan move when it comes to measuring corruption. The MCC scorecard, I do not have to repeat to you.
You already know. Transparency International, in 1 year, we jumped 10 places. We have moved 13 places in 3 years. We are leading countries that we are admiring before in the fight against corruption. So even locally, when Carl did their survey on the fight against corruption, it was confirmed locally, just imagine locally, they confirmed that indeed now is the best in the fight against corruption. So either way you look at it, we are at our very best, and I'm very happy for Sierra Leone, and I must congratulate the people of Sierra Leone that today we can be talking. Our president is addressing the United Nations on the fight against corruption. From a very small country, when they want to talk about examples of fighting corruption, they invite President Julius Maada Bio from Sierra Leone to go and speak to world leaders on the campaign against corruption. I am a very proud man to sit and watch my TV and watch my president do that.
All right.
That we were known in 2013 as the most corrupt country in the world, statistically. If today our president is now the one addressing the world on the fight against corruption, we can look at ourselves and say, thus far have we come.
All right. Well,
and be happy
thank you
about
so
it.
much for making time to be on Wake Up Sierra Leone this morning.
Well, fighting corruption. Francis, my friend, we wish you well. I saw him, you know, a few days ago talking about the Auditor General's report, the 2019 report, and over 1,000 issues of interest to them. And
they have a busy holiday.
Busy holiday, and he's called on all those who have documents to provide, answers to give, to make themselves available to the ACC, and you know, clarify issues and let them understand what's happening. But you know, it's going to be a busy time for them. And people who work in governments too. But that's about it. It's about accountability and good governance. So if you can't provide, and what I don't understand is how people in government cannot provide documents when they go to audit them, but they can provide these documents to the ACC afterwards. Or after the audit report, they will say, oh, we have the documents, we are unable to provide them. But most times when they do audit report, they send these documents to them, ask them questions. They can't provide the documents.
Which is why a lot of times people think these documents are falsified. Because if it was, people just like headache.
I don't.
Because honestly, if it was there, you ask me for a bottle of water, it's here. I'm just taking it and handing it over to you.
Simple.
But if I know the bottle is empty, that's when I'll stall with you and then find a way to fill the bottle. It's unnecessary headache when your integrity is at stake. I don't see any reason for non-compliance.
I don't. And if you check audit reports from 2007 to date, it's the same issues, documentation, you know, procurement, paying, overspending. It's the same.
Anyway, this is where we'll end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Our quote for today says, to deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. And it comes from late Nelson Mandela, South African civil rights activist and president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999.
Many thanks to our sponsor, Ukel Commercial Bank, for their support to the program. Continue to stay with AYV throughout the day as we have other exciting programs coming up. Till we meet tomorrow with more interesting topics here on Wake Up Sierra Leone. We have been your presenters. I am Amadullah Mwanapa.
And I am Phoebe Sweel. Stay safe and have a lovely day. Cheers.